good to be here with you this afternoon and talk on this most exciting and critical subject on leading, power to lead. We thank the convention, the education department for selecting this because I think it's so critical. Now, you will probably hear different things from different speakers, and I just wanted to let you know that of all the speakers and all the subjects, that power to lead, leadership is empowering, is the most critical of all leadership qualities. Now, you hear others say the same thing about theirs, but because of my experience with empowerment, I think it is critical. I think it is one of the most significant things that any leader will do, whether you're a leader in a school, or you're a leader in a church, or you're a leader in an organization. This whole issue about empowering others who serve with you is so significant and so critical. So what is empowering? The definition says is to give someone authority or power to do something. As a leader, for you to give someone authority or power to do something. Give them the opportunity, to give them an assignment, to give them a platform, to give them a stage so that they can do something. Leadership is using your authority to facilitate someone else using their authority. It is using your authority to facilitate someone else using their power or their authority. Every year I do an evangelistic meeting, a public evangelistic campaign, and I typically have young pastors working with me. And I do it for two reasons. One is to offer people an opportunity to respond to God's love and to be accepted in his kingdom and to be saved eternally. That's one reason. The second reason I do it is to give an example or to model to young pastors that evangelism still works. I got one amen. And last year I did a meeting in Columbus, Ohio. We call it Impact Columbus. And I had several young pastors that were there. And I noticed that in the meetings when we had workers meeting, some of them seemed a little bit disengaged and disinterested. And so I started giving them assignments. I started giving them responsibilities to do different things in the meeting and quizzes. And one of the young pastors, about halfway through the meeting, came to me and said, "You know, Elder Bryant, I haven't been for evangelism because I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do it." He said, "But I think I'm learning in this meeting." So near the end, when the meeting was concluded, he came to me again and he said, "I got it. I got it." He said, "I've learned how to do evangelism." He said, "I'm going to do a meeting next year." And my heart leapt with joy. And then he said, "I'm going to take some of your old stuff and put it with my new school stuff, and I'm going to do a meeting." And when I first heard that, I was a little bit, my old stuff, I didn't know my stuff was old. But as I thought about it, I said, that's empowerment. Is giving people the opportunity to take your old stuff and put it with their new stuff and take it to a different level. So this young pastor, I did quiz cards the old-fashioned way. But he had an idea. He said, what if you put a scan code up and have people take it on the phone? You don't have to do that. I'm going to take your old stuff and put it with my new stuff and take it to a new level. That's empowerment. Leadership is empowering people to do not just what you can't, but what you can do. Sometimes we're okay with getting people to do things that we don't have skills for, abilities to. But what about getting and empowering people to do that you can do yourself? And one of the things about this aspect of empowering, when you enable others to do what you can do, and sometimes maybe they won't be able to do it at the level that you do it, but to give them the opportunity to serve in that way empowers them and helps your organization, your school, your church be a better organization. You know, empowering as a principle of leadership is throughout the Bible. Jesus empowered the disciples with healing power, and he sent them out. Jesus could heal himself. In fact, he healed many himself. He cast out demons himself. But he gave these disciples the power to do what he could do himself. Because it was his design and it was his desire to plant in them confidence and the ability to do things long after he was gone. So he said, listen carefully, I have given you authority that you now possess to tread on serpents and scorpions and the ability to exercise authority over all the power of the enemy, and nothing will in any way harm you. So why did Jesus why did he give them this assignment that he could do himself? Because Jesus knew that they need to take things to another and even a greater level. So he gave them the opportunity to serve while he was here. And one of the things about leadership, you may have the ability to do it. You may have the gifts to do all of it. But the challenge is you don't have the time to do all of it. So you empower others so that the organization can grow bigger, broader, and have a farther reach. Empowering builds within the recipient confidence in their ability to lead. I was at Oakwood University, and Oakwood had a student missionary program, and they sent me out to Japan to represent Oakwood. I was 19 years old. Never been out of the country before, never traveled before, and they sent me to teach conversational English in Japan. And they equipped us, they trained us, they gave us manuals. And in my class was the president of Sony, the vice president of Panasonic, the vice president of Toyota, the vice president of, it was Datsun then, but Nissan. And I thought about 10 years later, I wish I was a student enough to build a relationship with them so they could give me cars for the rest of my life. And I went over to Japan, never having taught before, with an assignment from the university. And I didn't even know anything about the culture. At that time, I had a big afro. I know it's hard for you to imagine, but just use your imagination. And I had to go to the barber to get my hair cut. And the way they cut hair there in Japan, they just wet your hair and they put it between your fingers and cut it with the scissors. So I saw them wetting my hair. And as he grabbed some scissors to go between my hair, I said, wait a minute, I'm in the wrong place. But I didn't know anything, but the church and the university entrusted me to lead at 19 years old. They equipped me, they trained me, and that did something to me in building confidence and my ability to lead that I didn't even know was there. Empowering individuals gives confidence to lead. And I would tell you today that confidence, that connecting with something in myself that I did not know was there, is still alive because of what happened when I was 19, because the church and the university empowered me. That is the power of empowering individuals. Empowering facilitates maximum use of human resources and gifts on a team. You can't do everything as a leader. You can't do everything as a principal. You can't do everything as a teacher. You can't do everything as a president. But you have people around you who have gifts and talents and abilities that God has given them. And you can maximize their gifts But the organization would go further if you would empower them to make certain decisions, empower them to use those gifts, empower them to use the abilities that God has given them. Empowering indicates to the recipients that they are trusted, to lead. And one of the greatest things that we can do as leaders is to build that trust and that confidence in those that God has called us to lead. Empowering others must be extended on a set of common values, common core values. We establish that. We establish a common purpose, a common objective, and then you empower people to use the abilities and talents and skills that God has given them so that they can take your school, your church, your organization to another level. Empowering doesn't wait until a person is perfect in all things. They may have some deficits, and when they sent me over, I had deficits, but they trained me on how to do this one thing, how I could take this manual and teach conversational English to high-powered executives in Japan. Empowering doesn't say that a person doesn't have flaws, but it does say that they have gifts that are God-given that we and the Lord wants to use. Empowering must be preceded with preparation. Jesus said to those he empowered, "Greater works than these, verily, verily, I say unto you, he that believeth in me, the works that I do shall he do also, and greater works than these shall he do, because I go unto my Father." And here's one of the challenges of leadership, is empowering people to go farther than you did. There's something about our human psyche that if the person who follows me, the person that I empowered, goes farther than me, there's something about my human psyche that says that it diminishes me. It does just the opposite. It exalts what you are doing and the organization. And Jesus himself said, "Greater works than these that I did, because I've empowered you to go before me." Empowering without preparation is like giving a child a stick of dynamite. So they have to be prepared. They have to be trained, but they have to be empowered. But leadership without empowerment is like a brand new car with no transmission. If we give people leadership without empowering them, we go nowhere. God has called each of us to empower and to help people grow past where we are. Jesus did it. Barnabas and Paul. Barnabas brought Paul to Antioch. And Paul wasn't a great figure. He was actually somewhere afraid of him. But Barnabas invested in Paul, empowered Paul, and Paul went further than Barnabas did, but Paul could have never gotten there without Barnabas. Without Barnabas taking his position, his platform, his leadership, and saying to Paul, "I'm going to pour into you. I'm going to give you opportunity. I will give you an assignment. I will give you a platform so you can use the gift that God has given you." And it's only when I have the mind of Christ can I get there. Because my human psychic says, I don't want that person to outshine me. But if I care more for the school, and if I care more for the church, and if I care more for the organization, if I care more for the calling that God has placed on me, then I empower those that God has put in the sphere of my leadership. Leadership without empowering is no leadership. Elder Dan Jackson served as the president of the North American Division. I served under him as a secretary. And Elder Jackson would chair the year-end executive committees. And the executive committee can be an intimidating place to lead because you have all the leaders from North America, all the conference presidents, all the union presidents and officers, all the university presidents, selected laypersons, selected pastors, over 300, and that's the group that you're chairing. And sometimes Elder Jackson, while he was chairing a meeting, he would tell me, I need to take a bathroom break, and can you chair in my stead? I'm looking at all these people looking at me. I said, okay, I can hold it down for 5 minutes. So Elder Jackson would leave and come back in about 5 or 10 minutes. And I noticed that every time he asked, the time that he was gone was longer. And I was concerned about an item coming to the floor that was too controversial that I couldn't handle. And one time I looked out in the back and Elder Jackson was all the way in the back of the auditorium laughing and slapping five and shaking hands and greeting people in the back. And I'm saying, Elder Jackson, we got an item coming up. But he would make me sit up there because what he was doing was purposeful. It was intentional. He was giving me a platform and an opportunity to lead so that I could build confidence in what I was doing. And an hour would go by, 2 hours, I would send somebody and say, tell Elder Jackson we got this item on women's ordination coming up. We need him. He said, tell him, okay, I'll be there. He waited another 30 minutes. He was being intentional. And sometimes when you empower others, you really probably can do it better than they. But your doing it better than them is not growing them. Are you all with me? And so he took the chance to say, I'm going to let Alex handle it. And I was hoping that he would come back and handle it. And it was with intentionality and purpose that he gave me a stage and a platform to lead. It was intentionality and purpose that Oakwood sent me to Japan. And those opportunities to lead helps grow you as a leader. Even when you make your mistakes, you're growing. Leadership without empowering is no leadership. So teach, inspire, motivate, but most of all, empower those that God has called you to lead. Empower them so they can take your old stuff with their new stuff and lead your church, your school, your organization to higher heights. God bless you.